TypeScript Congress is almost here. Mark your calendars for September 21st and 22nd to connect with a vibrant TypeScript community and learn about everything from tooling to testing. Kit Nation were kind enough to connect us with the speakers so we could learn more about their passions. If you've used Vue.js, you are probably familiar with Nuxt.js, and if you've used Nuxt.js, you are probably familiar with Daniel Roe. He leads the Nuxt.js core team, and his community contributions have been recognized in the form of various awards, including Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and Google Developer Expert. I caught up with him to learn more about his opinions on TypeScript, so let's go. All right, Daniel, thank you for joining us today. Can you give a brief introduction for yourself and your background in TypeScript?
Sure. So I am, my name's Daniel. I live in England, although I'm not originally from here. I live in the northeast on the banks of a river within an ancient wood. So that might give you a feel for my quaint and rustic setting. I lead the Nuxt team, so building Nuxt, which is a full stack framework for building web apps. And we recently rebuilt it entirely. So I'm not sure there's a single line of code between Nuxt 2 and Nuxt 3. And it's been a lot of fun launching that and seeing what's been happening. My background in TypeScript, I think I first came across... How did I first come across TypeScript? I remember making a choice between Flow and TypeScript when those two were both viable candidates. And obviously people were, a lot of people were keen on Flow and some on TypeScript too. I was interested, I think, in bringing greater stability to my own code and to the code my team was writing. I wanted for us to be able to catch errors and mistakes early on, and adopting TypeScript seemed like a very, very good way of doing that. And I really haven't looked back. I think I've, from almost the first day, I started creating packages to make using TypeScript easier in Vue and in other integrations like the CMS we were using at the time. And that's been a lot of fun. There's a lot of magic you can do with TypeScript.
Yeah, one of the great things about TypeScript in that TypeScript versus Flow right now, of course, like it's very clear which one is that most people will use. But even back then, one of the reasons why I chose TypeScript is because TypeScript is self-hosted, which means that it is written in TypeScript, whereas Flow is written in OCaml. Not a big deal, but just I was someone who also wanted to be involved in the compiler side of things, which is why like TypeScript was the easier option for me.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Nuxt.js. Absolutely fantastic project. 46k stars on GitHub. It is, I like to call it as Next.js for Vue. Is that something that the Nuxt team calls it as well?
I think that's probably fair. So, and that was certainly what it was when it started. So the name is a hat tip to Next, except for Vue, hence the U. I mean, I think we've diverged a little in the subsequent years. So we have features they don't have. They probably have features we don't have. But the thing is, I guess we have a parallel evolution because we're wanting to create performant web apps and to give a great developer experience to people. And so that's going to pull us in along similar paths. But yes, that was certainly where we started. And it's a lot of fun tackling those common problems.
I completely agree, like focusing on the problem and not focusing on providing the same developer experience in a different platform, that should be the priority, and that's clearly the priority as you've described. You are presenting at TypeScript Congress 2023. Do you want to talk about the topic that you're presenting?
So the topic I'm talking about is pretty dear to my heart because one of the things that Nuxt 3, our Nuxt 3 rewrite gave us the opportunity to do is actually write it all with first-class TypeScript support. So that doesn't just mean the fact that obviously it's written in TypeScript, but actually we've made TypeScript and good TypeScript support for the end user one of our top priorities. So that actually, and I think this is true of most libraries, the objective is that the user doesn't have to write any TypeScript, or it's an escape hatch for them. So as much as possible, we infer types. So we provide things like end-to-end type safety out of the box. Everything that has maybe an important string value, like users in Nuxt can pick a middleware to guard their root. So they might have authentication middleware, and they have to identify that with a string. Well, we can type that. Or they might choose a layout for their pages. We can type that too. So there are a lot of very, very interesting things that we've been able to do because we've made TypeScript sort of the base, a good integration with it at sort of a base requirement. Even third-party modules can hook into these things and provide good types for users. So one of the things that sets Nuxt apart is having a modules ecosystem, which allows hooking into Nuxt itself and adding integrations or features. And so we've actually allowed end users or third-party modules to hook into the type system of Nuxt, so they can actually provide inferred types or their own augmentations for lots and lots of different things. Mm-hmm. And basically, I'm going to dive into some of the cool things that we've done and talk a little bit about the kind of things that enables, and hopefully also hear from other people and maybe have some exciting conversations about what it's possible to do for a framework or a library.
Nuxt definitely sounds like one of those, it's one of the harder problems to solve, building a framework like this. There's so many moving parts. As an example, what does Nuxt use for its bundling system?
So Nuxt uses Nuxt uses Vite by default to bundle the front end part of the code, mm-hmm. and then we use Rollup to bundle everything again into a server which can run on the edge. The front end, though, is actually agnostic. You can pick a different bundler if you want. And we have a first-class Webpack bundler support with an RSPack bundler mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
On its way. And users could, it's possible for somebody to provide a different bundler using Parcel or something like that. But to be honest, most people love Vite. And I don't think there's been really any huge community move to go to anything else. So yes, but Vite is our default.
Yeah, within the React ecosystem, one of the conversations that I seem to be having with people is either they'll use Next.js or they'll use Vite bare metal as well, because that's quite sufficient for a lot of use cases. And Webpack is not normally a part of those conversations at this point. So you've seen a lot of things evolve over the year. TypeScript is, of course, one of those things as well. Are there some features in the TypeScript evolution that really struck out for you? And is there something that you would want to see in TypeScript in the future?
My personal wish list would include things like partially inferred generics. So to be able to have a function, for example, where you can explicitly pass one generic, but have the function infer the rest. Based on what you pass to it. So that I think would be quite a nice feature. So to allow granular overriding of functionality. Mm-hmm. I think, and I don't know if you can tell that bit me recently. So that's why it's top of my list. In terms of what I particularly appreciated, I think inference. So type inference and being able to write. I mean, this is, I guess, pretty much essential to modern library TypeScript. But to be able to write sort of extends queries and actually those ternaries allow you to do incredibly useful things. I guess I wish it were a little bit more readable. I always find that writing TypeScript is amazing in terms of the experience at the end of the day, but it's not always that readable. It feels like we're writing. It's a programming language, which is almost entirely mm-hmm. expressed in ternaries, which feels like it feels unnecessarily verbose. And I think we could also improve the experience for the end user in terms of errors and warnings, because often as a library author, I could provide a very good error message. I could say, okay, the reason this isn't working is because of this, but there's no real first-class way to provide that in TypeScript. And I think that could be a very nice thing. I know there are some discussions about that as well. But there you go. That's probably more than you were asking for. That's what I love, but those are also some of the things that brilliant. I would change.
Yes. In terms of challenges to TypeScript, like you've seen developers struggle with TypeScript and be like being afraid of using TypeScript. Can you think of some things that have been a factor in that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a feeling of unfamiliarity. So the fact that TypeScript is is additive. So you can actually write perfectly normal JavaScript code, and that's perfectly good TypeScript, I think is one of the best things to allay that worry. So you only have to write types when you want to. So that's something that you can gradually adopt. It's not like you have to completely change your coding style. It's not like adopting decorators or any number of other different coding paradigms. You actually just write your normal code. I think I think the thing that wins people over to the TypeScript is the IDE experience and the developer experience. The fact that you can be coding and you get great recommendations straight away. The thing that puts them off is the red underline. When they get something that's a type error, but they know it's perfectly good JavaScript, and I think that is the thing that we need to work on. But I'm not sure that's a TypeScript issue. I think that is a library author issue. In most cases, in some cases, it's also teaching people how to solve these easy issues. So it's saying there's a type error, and that's just because they haven't declared the type of a thing in advance. And that it's easy to solve. It just requires an extra line of something. And not only will the type error go away, but then they'll get extra type safety down the line. But I think it's that kind of friction. So once people start getting into making the red squiggles go away, then I genuinely think it's an acceleration into type safety from that point onward. It's genuinely addictive. I remember migrating a huge code base to TypeScript and just like seeing thousands of type errors when I did my type checks, and actually then just me typing away, watching Netflix, making the type errors go away, and it felt so great, just seeing them go away, and I'd make a change, and 100 would go away. Excellent. And it's just very validating, I think, when you know that not only am I making this number go down, but my code is getting more reliable, and next time I'm not going to have to worry about this, or I'm going to be able to refactor this more easily in the future.
I've definitely had a number of great refactoring experiences like that as well. But another interesting one similar to that, just putting something on the TV and just letting TypeScript guide me, is when I had a JavaScript code base and I had to understand it. What I did was, not because I wanted to migrate it to TypeScript, I just started to add TypeScript to it so that I could understand or document what I was understanding about the code base, and then it would give me the next error that, hey, this type is no longer compatible over there, and then just keep on implicit any, switch off implicit any, make strict null checks, and then let TypeScript scream at me till all those errors go away, and then I understand the code base a bit more. Are there any expectations for the TypeScript Congress? Are you looking forward to some talks from some of the speakers?
I absolutely am. So, just looking at the list of speakers, it's a pretty star-studded list, honestly, and it's a real privilege to be able to give a talk there. I think we have talks from people like Jake Bailey, who's sort of looking after performance on the TypeScript team, Alexandra Sakura as well, with a great focus on performance. I'm particularly interested in that. I want to make I want to make sure that the types I write as an author are performant for users, even at scale. So I think they'll have some great things to say.
Sounds exciting. So you're clearly focused on performance as well, and the performance of types and performance of types for consumers of your library. That's great to hear as well, because you are maintainer of a very, very popular library over here. I also noticed one more interesting thing about you. It's roe.dev. That's your domain.
That's right. Yes.
Have you received any offers for someone wanting to take that 3-letter domain from you?
Do you know what? Nobody has, actually. I think probably it's I don't know. It's nobody's wanted to acquire it. But I do have another domain which is just 4 letters, and people have emailed me to try and get that, which is nano.dev. That's going to be my upcoming amazing super speedy framework. I'm kidding. There are no such plans as of yet. But
nice.
But Roe.
Oh, okay.
Nobody's grabbed Roe yet.
I think that's it for me. So, do you have anything else that you want to talk about, that you want to give a shout to for the audience?
One of these days, I would love to give a talk on Magic Regexp, which is a library I wrote which does regular expressions purely in TypeScript and gives you type safety when using regular expressions. And it's purely at development time. In production, it compiles away entirely to normal regular expressions. So that is my shout out, and it's annoying, self-serving. It's my own library, although I can't take credit for half the good features which have been added by other people. But check that out.
Sounds very exciting. Thank you so much. And I just want to point it out, you're also a Microsoft MVP and a Google developer expert, and you have a very successful Twitter account.
That's very kind of you.
It for me. Thank you, Daniel. No worries. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for answering these questions, and I hope the audience enjoyed it. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
That is it.